CBT therapist, EMDR therapist and forensic psychologist, but I'm also a DPsych student, so I wanted to give some insights into how I am preparing for my Viva, which is soon. So after I handed in my thesis, I took a break of a couple of months. Obviously it depends how long you have in between kind of submission and your Viva. But I didn't read my thesis after I handed it in. And then when I got my Viva date, I spent some time rereading it. But I reread it and looked out if there was any mistakes, because they are going to be typos, or I found there was like hyphens missing. So I just went through and highlighted the errors that I could see, and then I put that in a separate document. Also, as I was reading through it, I was making notes of anything that I thought would maybe that I didn't explain as well, and that maybe there's some more recent research that I had since become aware of that could be useful to strengthen or to illustrate some points. So again, with that, I made a note of that. I put that into the same document with kind of areas for expansion. And then following that, I checked all the references, but thinking about some of the areas for expansion. So I looked within my subject area, I looked at recent research that had come out and made a note of any that, as I said, kind of supported some of the points or kind of helped to expand it. And again, I put that into the document. And if you know who is maybe examining you, you may want to consider any research that they've done, maybe that supports some of your arguments or even challenges some of your arguments, because that may be something that you could bring to the Viva to discuss. So again, that was then put into a separate document. I also made an outline of my key arguments that I wanted to ensure that I was able to talk about, but also again having it in a bullet pointed form. So even though I did print out my thesis, so I had highlights, I had colour codes, I had little like post-it notes, so I had all the information, so whether it was errors, whether it was areas for development, whether it was with more recent research that had come out about a certain topic, or if it was in terms of anything that I knew the examiners had said. So that was on the thesis, annotated, but also in a separate document. And what this allowed me to do within the separate document, I then made headings. So I had the headings of all of the things that I just mentioned, so the areas for development, or areas I didn't explain that maybe I thought that I could expand upon, anything that there was other research that supported my findings, so that it was easy for me to refer to. And my brain works that way of, I suppose, writing and reading. But I also did, with all of those notes, I looked at typical questions that come up in the Viva, and again I put them as headings. So questions like explain your Viva in 2 minutes, or what are the motivations for your Viva, thinking about maybe how you minimise bias, what decisions did you make and why you chose your methodology, were there any, thinking about kind of the strengths or maybe the weaknesses of that methodology, but also being able to explain that. Thinking about future research or future practice, as mine is a DPsych, is really linked to practice. So I really wanted to make sure that that was something that I felt comfortable in asking. So with those questions, there were a lot more. So in terms of if I encountered any problems with applying my chosen method of analysis, what do the results mean and how do they relate to practice? With the key arguments, thinking about how does my thesis actually support those key arguments, and even thinking about if there's any critique of those key arguments. Another question that I thought was quite useful, that if you were to start again, would you do anything differently? And thinking also about maybe how your views changed or developed as you were progressing through conducting the research, but also writing the thesis. So I had all of those questions, all of those points, and then they became the headings within the document. And then I practiced answering them. So I had it written, but I also practiced speaking them. So I got people that I trusted to ask me the questions. I work better if I've got someone to kind of they don't have to give me feedback, like they need to understand it, but just talking to someone. But I also did record all of those questions and all of those answers, all the areas for development, the errors, and I had them recorded to listen to. I haven't listened to them yet because I did it thinking that I could go out for walks and listen to it, but I kind of realised that my brain prefers to practice. However, with the recording, I've got the questions and I've left a gap in the recording so I can pause and answer myself. So if I don't have someone to go through, I can still practice it by myself. So you may be someone that really likes kind of that listening and kind of that's the way that it goes into your brain, but for me it is more of the practicing, and that's something that when I spoke to other people is being comfortable talking about it, that you've written about it, and you are your expert on your subject, but getting comfortable in speaking it out loud rather than just writing. So that was something that I found really useful, is that practicing talking it out loud. So now I've got this document. I also have like cards, like these sorts of cards with points and basically everything that I said that I put in that document. I've got it on these as well as in the thesis and in this separate document. Again, the repetition just helped my brain. So that is kind of really what I have done so far. Something that I think is really important is to make sure that you still do take time to take care of yourself. I know it feels really overwhelming. Like I said, my Viva is very, very soon. But I know I need to take time. So whether that's going out for walks, whether it is watching movies, reading, doing something to kind of fill up your cup, that you're not just completely draining yourself, and knowing when you need to take a break. So again, music really, really helps me. I use a Pomodoro technique, but knowing to give myself regular breaks to make sure that I am fueling my body, making sure that I'm doing things to also relax. So I hope that maybe give you some ideas about how to prepare for your Viva. There are probably many ways, and if anyone's reading this or listening to this and they are also preparing for the Viva, maybe drop some things in the comments that you found helpful so we can maybe share and learn from each other as well. But as always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see another video maybe about me discussing how the Viva went, then let me know and I'd be happy to do that as well. But if you are preparing, I wish you all the best. You've got it. You're an expert in your thesis. I'm reminding myself of this every day. But yeah, I will see you in the next video. Take care.